And that's exactly what they don't want you to know. When I started connecting the dots, I realized there's a perfectly engineered system designed to keep you sick enough to need medication, but not sick enough to die quickly. It's diabolical, but financially, it's genius.
Wait, doctor, are you telling me there's literally a plan to keep us sick?
It's not some secret conspiracy with people meeting in dark rooms, but it's actually worse. It's a system that evolved naturally because keeping people chronically ill has become the most profitable business on the planet. And people like you and me, especially after 50, we're the ideal customers.
Oh my God, that gives me chills. Because when I look around, everyone my age is taking at least 3 or 4 different medications.
Exactly. And do you think that's a coincidence? Let me show you how this system works, because once you see it, you can't unsee it.
And now it's starting another Dr. Secrets podcast.
Doctor, before we go on, I need to say something to our listeners. When you first told me about this, I thought, it can't be that obvious. But after you explained it, I started seeing this pattern everywhere, in my own family, in my friends. It's scary, and that's why I decided to speak out about this publicly, even knowing it's going to upset a lot of powerful people. Because what's happening to our generation is a silent crime. Let me start with a simple question. Do you know anyone over 60 who doesn't take any medication regularly?
Wow, let me think. No, honestly, I don't. My mom takes 6 different meds, my dad 4. My neighbors, all of them are on something for blood pressure, cholesterol, diabetes. Exactly. Now tell me this, do you think our grandparents at the same age were on that many medications? No, definitely not. My grandmother passed away at 89, and I remember her taking, at most, 1 pill for joint pain. Exactly. And it's not because medicine got worse. On the contrary, medicine has improved a lot. What happened is they discovered the perfect formula. Create conditions that require ongoing treatment, not a cure. Because curing doesn't make money. Chronic treatment does. But doctor, isn't that a conspiracy theory? I mean, doctors really want to help us, don't they?
Look, the vast majority of doctors do want to help. I went into medicine to help people. But the system we work in was built to be profitable, not to heal. And here's the first crucial point. The food industry and the pharmaceutical industry work in perfect symbiosis, even if they don't realize it.
What do you mean?
Explain that better. Simple. The food industry creates products that cause chronic inflammation, insulin resistance, and chemical dependency. Then, the pharmaceutical industry sells the solutions for the problems the food industry created. It's a perfect cycle.
Are you talking about those processed foods we see in every supermarket?
Exactly. But it's much more subtle than you think. Let me give you some concrete examples that'll shock you. Did you know that sugar has been deliberately added to products where it doesn't belong? Tomato sauces, bread, even processed meats? Why? Because sugar is addictive, literally. It activates the same reward centers in the brain as drugs like cocaine.
Seriously? That's scientifically proven?
Completely proven. There have been studies since the 1970s showing this. But here's the problem. Who funded most of the nutrition studies over the past few decades? The food industry itself. And what was the conclusion of those studies? That fat was the villain, not sugar.
Wait, so for decades we've been misled about what's actually harmful?
Exactly. And it wasn't an accident. There are internal documents from the sugar industry recently released showing how they paid scientists to blame fat for heart problems and divert attention from sugar. It's one of the biggest scandals in medical history, but almost no one talks about it.
That genuinely makes me angry, because I grew up hearing I should avoid fat, eat complex carbs, follow that food pyramid with bread and cereals at the base.
And following that advice, what happened to our generation? An epidemic of type 2 diabetes, metabolic syndrome, obesity, heart problems. Coincidence? Absolutely not. Now let me show you how this connects to the pharmaceutical side of the equation.
Please do, because I'm starting to see a very disturbing pattern here.
When you develop insulin resistance after years of hidden sugar in everything you eat, what happens? First, you go to the doctor complaining of fatigue, weight gain, trouble losing weight. The doctor orders tests. Your blood sugar shows pre-diabetes. Your cholesterol is high. Your blood pressure is creeping up.
And then he prescribes medications, right?
Exactly. Metformin for pre-diabetes, a statin for cholesterol, a diuretic for blood pressure. 3 meds you'll likely take for the rest of your life. And here's the trick. These medications control the symptoms, but don't address the root cause.
Which is?
Insulin resistance caused by decades of hidden sugar and refined carbs. But no one explains this to you. Instead, they tell you it's genetic, it's just your age, and that you need to accept it and take your meds.
Doctor, this makes me so angry because I see my own parents exactly in this situation. They take meds for everything, but no one ever talked to them about real dietary changes. And do you know why?
Because the average doctor's appointment in the United States lasts about 15 minutes. In 15 minutes, it's much easier to prescribe a pill than to explain how to reverse insulin resistance with lifestyle changes. Plus, many doctors simply never learned this in medical school.
How is that possible? Isn't nutrition part of medical training?
That's one of the most shocking parts of all this. Most medical schools offer less than 20 hours of nutrition education over 4 years. 20 hours! For something that's at the root of almost every chronic disease. Why? Because the medical curriculum is heavily influenced by the pharmaceutical industry.
What do you mean, influenced?
Simple. Who funds medical research? Who sponsors the conferences where doctors get updated? Who pays for the lunches at medical conventions? The pharmaceutical industry. And what's the constant message? For every problem, there's a pill. Not for every problem, there's a lifestyle change.
This is absolutely outrageous.
So our generation is literally being poisoned on one side and medicated on the other. That's exactly it, but in a much more sophisticated way than any conspiracy could be. It's a self-sustaining system. The sicker you get, slowly, the more you need the system. And the most twisted part, it works perfectly to keep you sick enough to be profitable, but alive enough to keep paying.
You said something that caught my attention. Sick enough to be profitable. Explain that better.
Look, if you died quickly from a heart attack at 55, the industry would lose decades of medication sales. If you stayed completely healthy until 90, they'd make nothing. But if you develop diabetes at 50, high cholesterol at 52, high blood pressure at 55, arthritis at 60, and you're on meds for all of it for the next 25 years, you'd be the perfect customer. Exactly. And I'm not exaggerating the numbers. An average American with diabetes spends about $16,000 a year on medications and medical care. Multiply that over 20 or 25 years. That's over $300,000 per person.
Oh my God! And that's just for one person with diabetes?
Just one person with diabetes. Now imagine someone with diabetes, hypertension, high cholesterol, and arthritis. We're talking $500,000 over that person's lifetime. And the saddest part? Most of these conditions could have been prevented or even reversed with dietary and lifestyle changes.
So you're saying there's a solution, but it's not promoted because it's not profitable. It's not that it's being purposely hidden. It's just not promoted because there's no lobby behind it. Who's going to run ads telling you to eat real food? Broccoli doesn't have a marketing department. Daily walks don't have sales reps pitching to doctors.
But medications do.
Medications have armies of sales reps, billions in marketing budgets, funded studies, doctors paid to give talks promoting drugs. It's a perfect marketing machine, and it works because it offers an apparently easy solution. Take this pill and keep living the way you always have.
Which is exactly what most people want to hear.
Exactly. Nobody wants to hear that they need to stop eating bread, cookies, soda, and processed foods. Everyone wants to hear that they can keep eating what they like and just take a little pill to fix the problems.
Doctor, I have to ask something that's really bothering me. You're painting a very dark picture here. Is there no way out? Are we all doomed?
Quite the opposite. There is a way out, and it's simpler than you might think. But it requires you to take control of your own health instead of leaving that responsibility to a system that profits from your illness.
What do you mean by taking control?
First, you need to understand that your body was designed to be healthy. Our ancestors didn't have type 2 diabetes, metabolic syndrome, or an obesity epidemic. These are modern diseases, created by modern foods and modern lifestyles.
So the solution would be to eat like our ancestors?
Partly, yes. But you don't need to go full caveman. You just need to follow a few basic principles the industry doesn't want you to know. Want me to tell you what they are?
Please, because I feel like that's what our listeners are desperate to hear.
First principle, if it has more than 5 ingredients on the label, it's probably bad for you. Real food doesn't need an ingredient list. An apple is an apple. An egg is an egg. Meat is meat.
That makes a lot of sense. What's the second?
Second, if your great-grandmother wouldn't recognize it as food, don't eat it. Would she know what a stuffed cookie with 40 chemical ingredients is? Of course not. But she'd know what butter, cheese, meat, and vegetables are.
And the third?
Third, and maybe the most important one, stop being afraid of natural fats and start being afraid of hidden sugar. Fat from grass-fed animals, olive oil, avocados, nuts, none of that will kill you. But sugar and all its forms will kill you slowly.
But doctor, that goes against everything we've been taught for decades.
Exactly. And that's why it works. When my patients follow these principles, things start happening that the pharmaceutical industry doesn't want. They stop needing medications.
Do you have real examples of that?
I have hundreds. Patients who reversed type 2 diabetes in 6 months. People who stopped taking statins because their cholesterol normalized naturally. Hypertensive patients who no longer need blood pressure meds. But I can't publish these cases because it would be considered irresponsible to promote people stopping medications.
Even when they no longer need the medications?
Even when they don't need them anymore, because the system is structured to keep you dependent. A cured patient is a lost customer.
That's deeply disturbing, doctor. And it makes me wonder, how many people could be living completely different lives if they knew this information?
Millions. Literally millions of people, and I'm not exaggerating. If just 30% of American type 2 diabetics reversed their condition through dietary changes, it would represent a loss of over $100 billion a year for the pharmaceutical industry.
That's why this information isn't widely shared.
That's why doctors who talk about this get marginalized, labeled as alternative or not evidence-based. Even when the evidence is right in front of us. What evidence? Populations that still eat traditional foods don't have our diseases. Eskimos eating seal fat don't have heart problems. Japanese people eating traditional fish and vegetables aren't obese. The Maasai eating meat and milk don't have diabetes. The evidence is everywhere, but it's ignored because it's inconvenient.
And what happened when those populations adopted the Western diet?
They developed exactly the same diseases we have, within 1 or 2 generations. This isn't genetics, it's diet.
Doctor, I need to ask a question I know many listeners are thinking. If all this is true, why are you speaking out? Aren't you worried about backlash?
Look, I could stay quiet, keep prescribing meds, make my money, and not stir the pot. But I couldn't sleep at night anymore seeing what's happening to people like your parents, your neighbors, maybe even you in the future.
So you think talking about this can actually change something?
I believe information is power. If every person listening to us right now shares this information with just 2 people, and those 2 people share it with 2 more, soon we'll have a critical mass of people who won't accept being deceived anymore.
But will people believe it? Because this sounds so
so big, so systemic.
And it is big and systemic, but it's not a coordinated conspiracy. It's worse. It's a system that evolved naturally because slow illness became extremely profitable. And profitable systems sustain themselves even when they're harming people, like tobacco, for example. Exactly like tobacco. For decades, doctors recommended cigarettes. There were cigarette ads featuring doctors saying smoking was good for you. It sounds absurd today, but back then it was science-based, funded by the tobacco industry.
And you think that 50 years from now, we'll look back and feel the same way about what we're eating today?
I'm absolutely sure of it. Our grandchildren will look back and won't believe that we knew about the dangers of sugar and ultra-processed foods, yet kept feeding them to our kids and consuming them ourselves.
Doctor, before we wrap up, I want you to give one practical, straightforward piece of advice to our listeners. If someone's listening right now and wants to start getting out of this system, what's the first step? The first step is the hardest, but also the most important. Stop blindly trusting the system and start trusting your own body. Your body will give you clear signals if you stop masking those signals with medication and start eliminating the poisons you consume daily.
But how do you do that without risking your health? Start slow, but start today. Cut out one category of processed food per week. Week 1, stop drinking sodas and store-bought juices. Week 2, cut out cookies, crackers, and sweets. Week 3, stop eating white bread and refined pastas. In a month, you'll feel a difference that will shock you.
And what if the person is already on medication?
Never stop medications without medical supervision. But find a doctor who understands nutritional medicine. Someone willing to reduce medications as your health improves, not someone who only knows how to prescribe more pills.
How do you find that kind of doctor?
Ask directly. Doctor, do you believe type 2 diabetes can be reversed with dietary changes? If they say no, find another doctor. If they say yes, you found someone who can truly help you.
And for someone who's just now starting to suspect they've been misled for years,
Trust your intuition. If you feel like something isn't right, it probably isn't. Your body wasn't designed to need 5 or 6 different medications just to function. That's not normal, even after 50, 60, or 70 years old.
Last question, doctor. What would you say to someone listening right now and thinking, it's too late for me?
It's never too late. Your body has an incredible ability to heal when you stop poisoning it and start nourishing it properly. I've seen 80-year-old patients reverse conditions they'd had for decades. Your body is just waiting for you to stop sabotaging it.
everyone, I hope you paid close attention to every word the doctor said today, because this isn't a conspiracy theory, this is reality. And the reality is that you have more control over your health than they want you to believe.
And remember, every day you delay making these changes, you're allowing this system to keep profiting from your suffering. Don't be another ideal customer for this billion-dollar business. Take control of your health before it's too late.
Thank you, doctor, for having the courage to speak these truths, and thank you to everyone who listened this far. Share this episode with people you love because this information can literally save lives.
And most importantly, don't just believe me, test it. Make the changes and see the results. Your body will give you the only proof you'll ever need that all of this is true.
See you in the next episode, folks, and remember, your health is your responsibility, not the responsibility of a system that profits from your illness.